Dual agency after the NAR settlement policy changes is quite simple, but it can also get awkward. When you're the listing agent and you meet an unrepresented buyer, and that buyer wants to make an offer on your listing, then offer representation. If they agree, have that buyer sign a representation agreement, write the offer, and bam, you are now a dual agent. That's how simple it can be. Now, just to be clear, there is no scenario in which you are a listing agent and you write an offer for a buyer without listing yourself as the buyer's agent and charging someone a buyer's agent commission. Do not write offers for unrepresented buyers. The superfluous line C2 in the new listing agreement has caused a lot of confusion because it offers a listing agent additional compensation for unrepresented buyers. This is because unrepresented buyers are almost always helpless, needy, and annoying. However, this additional compensation is not to pay you to work for the buyer and break rules. If you collect additional compensation from line C2 for an unrepresented buyer, you are not a dual agent. There is nothing in the listing agreement that provides for dual agency. Dual agency is only created when you write an offer with your name as the buyer's agent. If a buyer wants to make an offer on your listing, then they need to hire you or an attorney or figure it out on their own. If a listing agent gets greedy and writes an offer for an unrepresented buyer just to collect the compensation on line C2, then that could constitute some degree of professional direction or even representation, and that listing agent will get blamed for anything and everything that goes wrong related to the transaction from the beginning of escrow to the close of escrow to 3 years after the close of escrow. Now remember how I said dual agency can get awkward? Imagine you write an offer for a buyer on your listing and you're listed as the buyer's agent too. Incorporated in that offer is a seller payment of buyer's broker. When you present that offer to your seller, you're going to explain that you are charging a buyer's broker commission. Now, some sellers may get upset because after all, they're already paying you. Also, consumers have been grossly misled to believe that the settlement resulted in reduced commissions. You're going to have to explain that a buyer has to pay for their own representation, and if they cannot afford it, they're going to ask for relief from the seller in the form of a credit or concession. Regardless of this legal fact, this will not sit well with some sellers. Now, this awkward situation can be avoided by properly educating your seller when you sign the listing agreement about the current state of the industry. Explain that buyers commit to pay their own representative a commission, but most buyers will be asking for a concession to offset this cost. Add that there may even be a scenario in which a buyer contacts the listing agent directly for representation, and if that's the case, the buyer will be compensating me, the listing agent, the same way. The buyer may pay me directly or may ask you for a seller concession. Now, if this topic is addressed up front, it won't shock your client if you show up later with an offer asking for a concession to help the buyer pay your commission. But whatever you do, do not draft an offer for an unrepresented buyer.